to begin. All right, please come forward if you can. It'd be great to have you all up here closer if you want to. Thank you all so much for coming. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Justin Garut with Conservation Voters New Mexico Education Fund, and I'm proud to serve as the MC for today's press conference, where we're coming together with one clear message. New Mexico must adopt a strong and effective worker heat protection rule as quickly as possible. Friday afternoon, we were informed that the hearing for the rule will be delayed until November. For the sake of our workers, we hope employers will get on board now to protect their workers from devastating heat. And we know that we must adopt this rule to ensure that all workers are protected. We are standing here in solidarity because we believe that no one should have to risk their health or their life just to earn a paycheck. As our state gets hotter and our summers grow longer, and as temperatures climb higher, the danger to New Mexico's workers grows with it. From construction sites and chile fields to commercial kitchens and classrooms, workers across our state are being pushed to their physical limits. We've seen the consequences: heat illnesses, ER visits, hospitalizations, and even fatalities. This proposed rule is about common sense protections: water, paid rest breaks, shade, emergency response, and training. These aren't extreme demands. They are basic rights, and they're long overdue. We are here today to push back on industry groups who are claiming it's too hard, too fast, and too burdensome. We know what's truly burdensome. It's a family losing a loved one. It's a worker passing out on the job. It's a mother coming home from a 12-hour shift in the sun, not sure if she'll make it through the summer. That's why we're here, to show the broad role from educators, climate advocates, health professionals, immigrants' rights groups, labor unions, and more. In a few moments, you'll hear from several incredible speakers who will share why this rule matters, from both a policy perspective and deeply personal ones. But first, let me just say thank you. Thank you to Secretary Kenny and the New Mexico Occupational Health and Safety Bureau for developing an outstanding worker heat protection rule. Thank you to our coalition partners for your tireless advocacy. Thank you to the media for covering this important issue. And thank you for every person being here today showing up to say that our workers can't wait. Let's get this rule passed. Let's save lives. Now I'd like to invite our first speaker to the podium, Whitney Holland, President of the American Federation of Teachers, New Mexico.
Sorry, I'm a little bit shorter. Hello, everyone. My name is Whitney Holland, and I'm proud to represent the American Federation of Teachers, New Mexico. Thank you. A union of educators and school staff from every corner of our state. We are here today to strongly support the proposed worker heat protection rule. For too many of our members, extreme heat is more than uncomfortable, it's dangerous. From maintenance crews and bus drivers to cafeteria workers and groundskeepers, school employees regularly work in outdoor or uncooled environments. Inside our schools, far too many educators and educational assistants teach in classrooms without air conditioning, poor ventilation, and temperatures that climb well beyond safe levels. This is not just a workplace issue. It is a matter of basic dignity and safety. No one should have to risk heat exhaustion to do their job. Our union has heard story after story. Bus drivers whose vehicles turn into ovens, support staff and teachers falling ill in overheated portables. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a growing trend as climate change pushes temperatures higher every year. That's why this rule is so critical. It sets a clear and reasonable standard: training, access to shade and water, and emergency response procedures. These are common sense protections that can prevent serious illness and save lives. We're especially grateful that this rule includes indoor heat standards, which are all too common in our public schools. We urge the Environmental Board to adopt this rule as soon as possible and to ensure that schools and other public employers are held accountable. Every worker deserves to do their job in a safe environment. We thank you for recognizing that and for taking this important step forward. Now, I'd like to invite our next speaker to the podium, Sarah Hager, a teacher at Cleveland Middle School and a member of the Albuquerque Teachers Federation.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Sarah Hager and I teach art at Cleveland Middle School here in Albuquerque. I am also a member of the Albuquerque Teachers Federation. I have spent the last 11 years at the same school teaching in the same room with middle schoolers. The one and only time, although one might think that I have cried many times at work, I actually haven't. The one and only time I did cry was after an uncomfortably hot day a few years ago when my AC had not been hooked up yet. I was probably going on day 5 of not having any AC at the beginning of the school year in August in New Mexico with a brand new group of students. My nerves were already at an all-time high, and I was working through all of the beginning of the year, welcome back to school, and getting to know you activities, all with a smile on my face. I got in my car that afternoon and drove home, crying the entire way. I was uncomfortable and didn't feel great, but most of all, I was frustrated. I was frustrated because not only could my students feel my frustration, but they could see it. I had completely sweat through my shirt and was having a hard time finishing the day. It's hard to act like a professional when I definitely didn't look like one. My story isn't even that bad. My story doesn't compare to what other teachers have to face on a daily basis across this state. There are space heaters and fans, extra clothes that are brought from home, and even the option and willingness to change classrooms or teach somewhere different for the day, the week, or even the month. The demand to be flexible isn't an option anymore. The demand to do the job you signed up to do isn't a job anymore. Teaching is interactive and involves healthy and engaged students in classrooms who are, you guessed it, moving around. I won't get into the nitty-gritty with you here today, but a classroom full of middle schoolers, aka Axe body spray enthusiasts, with no working AC is not my ideal sensory experience. Many New Mexican schools have antiquated HVAC systems that are in dire need of upgrading to meet the challenges of climate change. Our traditional reliance on evaporative cooling has proven problematic as swamp coolers become ineffective when temperatures rise above 90 degrees, especially when combined with increased humidity and classrooms full of students. Research establishes direct link between classroom temperature and students' ability to learn. Studies confirm students learn less and perform worse on tests in hot classrooms. Extreme heat also negatively affects the working conditions of New Mexico's educators, hampering our ability to attract and retain staff in our schools. What if, in a perfect world, educators had a system in which we could document, call, or report systems that weren't working and then get them fixed? That's actually it. We're not asking for a lot. We are not being crazy or radical in our demand for change. We're simply asking for a bare minimum to be met when it comes to working conditions. We stand in support of the worker heat protection rule, and we stand in solidarity with our partners to continue doing what's best for kids. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker to the podium, Shelley Manlev, Executive Director of Healthy Climate New Mexico.
I want to share the experience of a New Mexico Communication Workers of America union bus driver who has endured repeated, dangerous heat exposure just doing their job. It began in June 2024 during a brutally hot day. After hours of driving a bus without functioning air conditioning, this driver became overheated and developed a pounding headache, one of the key symptoms of heat exhaustion. They had to leave work early and use their personal sick leave just to recover. Then in early September, the same issue happened again, only worse. After spending another full day in an overheated bus, the driver called out sick for 2 days, fearing they'd be put back in the same unsafe vehicle. The following week, it happened again. Overheated, dizzy, unwell, they went home and were stunned when their employer reassigned them to the very same bus the very next day. When they asked for help, they were told they needed a doctor's note to prove that the heat was affecting their ability to work. So they did exactly that, visiting a clinic, notifying their management, even contacting the school's occupational health office. Only then was their route changed. But the struggle didn't stop there. By spring of 2025, the driver was once again placed in a bus with ineffective cooling. The symptoms returned: overheating, flushed skin, difficulty focusing, extremely dangerous conditions for someone responsible for transporting students safely. Despite already having documentation from medical professionals and employee health services stating that they must be assigned to a bus with proper air conditioning, the driver was told they needed to begin the process all over again, this time filing a formal accommodation request to their personal doctor. Their doctor, frustrated, agreed that the situation was beyond reason. Why, they asked, should a professional need to jump through this many hoops just to do their job safely? In a recent meeting with supervisors and a union representative, the driver brought up one of these incidents when the manager said the air conditioning was, quote, mostly there for the passengers, unquote. The driver replied rightly and boldly, that is completely backwards. How can we expect drivers to transport students safely if we won't ensure that they're safe and alert themselves? This story underscores exactly why New Mexico needs the worker heat protection rule and why we need it now, not months or years down the road. This rule would establish clear, enforceable standards, access to functional cooling systems, the right to rest breaks when temperatures soar, and accountability for employers to fix unsafe conditions before a worker is pushed past their limit. We need a system that protects workers before it's too late. Let's pass this rule and protect the people who keep our universities, colleges, schools, workplaces, and our state running. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker to the podium, Stephanie Welch, Director of Workers' Rights at the New Mexico Center on Law.
Good afternoon. As Shelley said, my name is Stephanie Welch. I'm the Director of Workers' Rights at the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. Workers should be able to support themselves and their families without putting their lives and health at risk. This is especially true of agricultural workers whose work feeds and supports everyone else. But many agricultural workers are at risk of long-term injury and death from heat. Agricultural workers are 35 times more likely to die from heat than workers doing other types of work. This is part because they work outside, exposed to weather conditions. It's also partly because many employers pay agricultural workers by the piece and pressure them to keep working and as fast as they can. For example, for some crops, workers in the field must keep up with moving machines, which they fill as they work harvesting. When these workers feel the signs of serious heat stress and know they need to rest or drink water, they can't without falling behind and having to work even harder to catch up. The New Mexico Environment Department's proposed regulation will protect workers from preventable injuries and deaths. These protections are a must for New Mexico workers, and they're practical for New Mexico employers. They include flexibility for employers to create their own plans to protect workers from heat. They come with extensive information, data, and support for employers to implement safety measures. And the proposed regulations benefit from the experience of the 7 other states, including Colorado, that have already implemented heat protections. Workers are desperately trying to provide for themselves and their families. Heat-related illness is preventable. Employers need to provide safe conditions to ensure workers go home safely to their families. This is achievable with the New Mexico Environment Department's proposed regulation. Now, I'd like to invite our next speaker, Carlos Matutes, State Director for Green Latinos New Mexico.
Thank you, Stephanie. Again, buenas tardes. My name is Carlos Matutes. I am the State Director for Green Latinos New Mexico. We're a national organization dedicated to environmental justice for Latina communities and other communities of color. As someone who grew up working outside as a mechanic in South Texas, I know the impacts of extreme heat on workers. I know what it's like to be on an oil field working on an air compressor behind a body shop, putting in airlines, working at a construction site to get workers going again. And I know what it's like to be so overheated that it becomes difficult to even think clearly. We're asking the New Mexico Environment Department, and more importantly employers, to act quickly to protect the well-being of our state's workers. These common sense rules protect the nearly 250,000 workers who put their health at risk to put food on our store shelves, to build our roads, and keep our economy running. Here in New Mexico, the vast majority of workers impacted by extreme heat are Latino. We make up more than 80% of farm workers here, 64% of construction workers, and a disproportionately high representation in both landscaping and oil and gas. The more time that passes without worker heat protection rules increases the risks of severe injury or worse. Heat injury has devastating impacts on not only the workers themselves, but their families and our communities. The Baylor College of Medicine notes that excessive heat causes changes in emotions and behavior that can result in feelings of anger, irritability, aggression, discomfort, stress, or fatigue. In other research, there is a direct correlation between excessive heat and physical, emotionally, and intimate partner abuse. Latina workers are 3 times as likely to die on the job from heat-related injury compared to non-Latina workers. Is this what we want for our state? For our communities? Do we value the humanity and dignity of our people more than a slight uptick in profits? Even that is a false dichotomy. Increasing worker protections is not only the right thing to do, but it also decreases the time that employees are away from work due to heat industry injury and illness. And while paid rest breaks during extreme heat seems like it would decrease productivity, it actually keeps everybody healthy, alert, and able to do their jobs better. We strongly encourage employers to implement these worker heat protection rules on their own and ask the New Mexico Environment Department to continue putting workers' needs at the forefront. I'd like to welcome Justin back for some closing remarks.
Thank you to all of our speakers for sharing your voices, your expertise, and your lived experiences. Before we close, I want to bring us back to the reason we're all here today. New Mexico needs a worker heat protection rule, and we need it now. While we wish our workers didn't have to wait through another record-breaking summer, we hope that our employers will use this time to put in place the common sense protections detailed so well in the proposed rule. Every day that passes without this rule is another day that people across our state are exposed to dangerous and sometimes deadly working conditions. This is a matter of health, it's a matter of equity, and it's a matter of basic human dignity. Industry voices have made themselves heard in this process. Now it's time for the rest of us, the people who believe in protecting lives over profits, to speak just as loudly and just as urgently. To our partners at the New Mexico Environment Department and state leadership, we urge you to stand strong. This is our moment as a state to stand up for workers. Finally, to members of the media, thank you all so much for being here today. If you'd like to speak with any of our speakers one-on-one or need additional materials, please come see us right after this. We're happy to connect you. Thank you all again, our partners, for showing up today, for standing up, and for speaking out. Let's get this rule across the finish line. Now we'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Yes, please.
Hi, Danielle with Source New Mexico. I think this is a question for you, but feel free for anyone else to jump in. What is the concern, if any, about NMED pushing back the heat rule?
Yeah, I think, we, like I said earlier in the press conference, we learned on Friday about 5 p.m. that they're pushing the rulemaking back. That concerns us. That leaves another summer where our workers are vulnerable to extreme heat in New Mexico. And we're committed to getting this through as strong as a rule that's as strong as possible, getting it through whenever that happens. So it sounds like it's going to be November. We're ready to be at the table with workers, with industry, with other groups to find a rule that's going to protect New Mexicans across the state.
And are you doing anything in the intervening period to collect more stories? What are you doing in the meantime?
Yeah, would anyone else like to speak to that? Yeah. Shelly, Manuel.
Thank you. I'm Shelley Manlett with Healthy Climate New Mexico. We are going to continue doing what we have been doing. First and foremost, we call upon anyone, as we had Sarah here telling her story, the bus driver. As you can imagine, for many workers, it's a difficult environment, right? That there can be fear. There are opportunities to share your story anonymously. We know from the data on how many people have been harmed that our Department of Health tracks, how many people have experienced heat illness and injury and even death. We know from that data that this is a serious problem for New Mexico workers. So first and foremost, we ourselves will be using this summer to meet with workers to encourage and listen to and lift up the voices so that this rule, in fact, will both have the support that it needs and be held strong so that it's in place. Second of all, we will be working with NMED, as will other stakeholders. They plan to hold a series of meetings with everything, I'm sure, from industry to workers to health advocates like Healthy Climate New Mexico, to people who are concerned about these environmental changes, to are there ways we can make the rule stronger? You know, we have submitted comment. It's a great rule, and there's always ways you can improve it. Are there ways that we can respond to some of the concerns that have been raised that will keep the strength of the rule, but maybe address some of those concerns in constructive matters? Finally, I hope that we will be in a place to offer support, because businesses and employers do not have to wait for this rule. In fact, if you read these comments, many of them will tell you they are already putting some of these measures in place. We hope we can provide more education, more support. The more employers and businesses that are following these best practices, the safer their workers will be and the better it will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Any other questions? Yes, Hannah?
Yes, Hannah Grover, New Mexico Political Report. I was just wondering what people can do who are wanting to voice their support for this rule. What can they do now while we're waiting for the November hearing?
Yeah, thank you so much. So right now, workers and anyone interested in supporting or providing comments on this rule can go to safework4all.org. We have links there on the campaign website that'll take you right to the NMED public comment portal. As of today, it's still open, so I understand they're still going to be collecting public comments, so people can submit their comments there. We have a link on the website as well to share workers' stories, either anonymously or if you can put your name to it. That's another option for folks to support this rule. We have a petition that we're collecting. We're aiming for 1,000 signatures, maybe more with this delay. There's another link on safework4all.org for folks to provide their input. Thank you. Any other questions? Tom?
Yeah, I have a question about this thing called the wet bulb fatality curve. I'm wondering if you could explain that.
Does anyone here?
I would like to take a swing at it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Tom. So what Tom is referring to is essentially the threshold where the human body cannot cool itself through evaporative cooling. Wet bulb refers to a junction of temperature and humidity. Above a certain threshold, our cooling system just stops working. We're seeing that threshold across our country. This is something that was unheard of even 20 years ago. But because of rising global temperatures, because of the amount of moisture that our air can hold, we're reaching these wet bulb thresholds much, much sooner in the season and many more times throughout that year. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
All right, thank you all so much for coming today. We really appreciate you being here. We're around to do one-on-one interviews if you'd like, and let's get this rule passed as quickly as we can to protect our workers across the state. Thank you all so much.
At this time, we got a quick picture with all the organizations here supporting this rule. If you'd like to come up to the front.
These great visuals. Now we need Camilla to stage us, Camilla. I know
If you're comfortable having your photo taken, we'd love to have you.
No, it's great.
David's happy to take the photo.
I did.